Now, the other two parts of this are the pathos analysis. That one is pretty straightforward because we didn't have too much time to go into a lot of depth when it comes to pathos analysis. For pathos analysis, we're really just trying to think, is this writer trying to use my emotions? Is he appealing to my emotions or any reader's emotions in any way? We can think especially about the language they're using. If they're using very emotionally loaded language, if they're using description words that are extremely glowing and positive or extremely negative and scary, if they're trying to make us feel, um, emotions like positive emotions, joy, hope, security, or if they're playing on our fears, our anxieties, those are all things that are an appeal to pathos. If we read the news right now, there is a ton of pathos being used in media right now around uh, the coronavirus, the COVID 19 virus, around the responses to it. Uh, Understandably, because this is a very emotional time, different writers have different agendas, different things that they're trying to accomplish, different things they're trying to convince us of. And so it's a very useful time for them to be using pathos. In some cases, writers may not use a lot of pathos. So I want you to go through the checklist. I really want you to try to look for examples of these things. Um, but you may not find a ton of examples. You may. It may be one that's loaded with pathos, in which case, please try to just quickly document it all in point form. But maybe you're just going to find one or two little examples. That's okay too. Every piece of writing is going to be different. The final thing you're looking at on that worksheet is logos analysis. And this is in a lot of ways the most important because this is where we can really decide, has this writer proved the point? Taking away the emotions, taking away ethos and who they are and their reputation and biases. When we look at the evidence, when we look at the numbers or the data or the examples, the logic of what's being put forward, this is where we can ask ourselves, has this writer proved this point? Right now, we have two different ways of looking at logos. Um, we want to look at logical analysis and we want to look at data analysis. Those are two things we can do. Data analysis has to do with looking at the actual numbers, looking at the evidence itself that the writer is using to back up their claim, to back up their thesis. And it's about asking, okay, this person is giving me a lot of data, they're giving me a lot of statistics or different kinds of evidence, but is the evidence solid? Does the evidence hold up? We can think about where it came from. We can think about the methods that are that are put into creating the data, and ask if it's really valid. That's one of the highest level and hardest types of analysis that we can do. Again, I've given you a bunch of questions there, or we have a bunch of skills for data analysis. You may not, you won't find something for every single one of them, right? But what I want you to do for that data analysis part is look back at the data analysis lesson. In particular, you can look at that step-by-step analysis worksheet that I gave you guys in week 7. And there's some specific types of issues with data that you can look at. And again, you won't find every single one of those, but those are things that you can look for. And if you do find, oh, you know what, he has these surveys, but they only asked people in one town for responses, which isn't going to give them the best data. Or, oh, they have these statistics, but then when they display them in charts, they're being very selective about how they actually, decide what gets emphasized, what gets de-emphasized. Those are different things that you can look at. Again, don't worry if you're not finding all of it. You won't be able to find everything for data, but maybe you'll find one or two. Maybe you won't find anything there, but I want you to think about it and look through that. The second type of logos analysis that we've done is logical analysis. And this is basically a way of saying, okay, let's say the data you're giving me is true. Let's say the data you're giving me is sufficient. Does that actually prove your point? Because what sometimes happens is writers will take the data, but their logical interpretation of it, how they use the data and apply it to their thesis, can be very contrived. It can be very manipulated. And sometimes the logic they're using to apply the data to the claim or the argument doesn't really make sense when we look at it more closely. The most important thing for that kind of logical analysis is to ask yourself that question. Does this support really back up the claim? Now, that can be a hard question to figure out, so we've looked at some specific kinds of logical fallacies. And again, you can reference those by looking at the slides from, I believe we did that one early on in week 2. I don't know, you can find it on Blackboard, week 2 or week 3, I think. And the key thing there is not that you are able to identify a specific logical analysis. It doesn't really matter if you're able to say, oh, this is a perfect example of circular reasoning, or this is a perfect example of post hoc fallacy. What's important is if you can identify a break in logic, a logic that isn't really making sense, an interpretation of the data that doesn't make sense. And those logical fallacies examples that we looked at, those are just there to sort of help you think about that. They're examples, they're ideas, and I think it can be helpful to review them when you're analyzing the logic. It can be helpful to think, hey, does this look at all like post hoc fallacy, or does this look at all like an either or fallacy? But even if it's not perfect, even if it's not a perfect example of either or fallacy, you may still have found a logical error. And if you can just explain what that logical error is in your own words, then you're doing great analysis. So, sorry, I'm just going to plug in my computer, or my phone here, because it is about to die. Uh-oh. Should have planned better for this. Okay, well, you guys are going to get a little tour of my life because I have to go out to my car and get my phone charger. So here we go, going to the car. Welcome to Etobicoke. It's a beautiful day. You can see a blue sky behind me. It's the inside of my car. It smells very, very bad because I haven't cleaned it in a long time. Going back inside right now. There's our friend, my dog Lupa. Say hi, Lupa. Sorry for the interruption. I'm just plugging my phone in now. Okay, hi. So, what I was saying is that you're working on the worksheet. Most of you guys, I think, are pretty far along in that process. I've been getting some questions about the worksheet. Again, there's a lot of questions on there. feel free to ask me for any clarifications. I don't want you guys to be in the dark. I'm always available. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. The worksheet is point form. So the tough part is doing the analysis and thinking about it. I don't want you to break your back writing out long answers. Just sort of point form, give me an idea of what you're thinking, give me an idea of what your analysis is. But the real purpose of all this analysis, the thing we're working towards, is the counter argument. So at this point, hopefully you're just about done those worksheets. Maybe you're even starting the counter argument. This has already been a long video, so I won't go over counter argument now. But if you haven't already, please take a look at week 9 and 10. That's when we did a lot of counter argument work, and we looked at the structure of how to write a counter argument paragraph. And the other thing that'll be really helpful for you is the feedback that I've given you on the group counter argument that you guys did in class for your graded exercise in week 10. And you guys did excellent jobs on those counter arguments, so I'm confident that you know what you're doing. But I think that's a good place to look because it'll remind you of the work you did, it'll remind you of how you understood counter argument, how you were able to do it. And my feedback mostly is just like little suggestions, like, oh, maybe if we expanded this little part here, or maybe we need a little bit more here. And I think that'll help you to write a better counter argument. So it's week 14. I would like to get these assignments uploaded at the latest by midweek next week. So Thursday of week 15. At this point, you guys have about a week and a half to finish everything up. Feel free to ask me any questions. And later in the week, I will make another video that is specifically about counter argument and writing that counter argument paragraph. I'll give you some reminders about that. So, I'm out of breath now. I've been talking too much. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Just remember, keep plugging along on those assignments. I am hoping, and I really encourage you to get to a point where you are done the worksheets within the next couple of days. That'll give you a full week to sit down, focus on the counter arguments, and get those written. And then at that point, you'll have everything done and you'll just be able to upload it as a package on Blackboard. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will talk to all of you very soon. Bye.